Dr. Chloe Costigan here from Mobility Doc. I am teaming up with Fit and Well to give you an original knee strengthening routine. When we think about knee strengthening, a lot of times we go to strengthening the quad. But these 4 exercises are going to help to strengthen everything around the hip, which is going to help with your mechanics at your knee. Very frequently, the knee gets the brunt of the issues related at the hip. Before doing any knee strengthening, you want to make sure that you have adequate flexibility. This is where checking out the Mobility Doc library can be of great resource to you, because you need adequate flexibility before you improve stability and strength. So this is intended for those who are ready for the strengthening phase. We have 4 different exercises. 2 of them are intended to isolate a single muscle. These are what we call activation exercises. Then we're going to do 2 exercises that are compound movement exercises. So this is going to incorporate the hip and the knee. For each of these exercises, I like to do this as a circuit. You're going to do 10 side leg lifts on either side, then 10 hip thrusts. You're going to do 5 modified single leg RDLs on either side, and you're going to do 5 single leg eccentric chair squats. So you're going to do 3 rounds of each of these exercises. Doing this as a circuit gives you a chance to be able to refine that movement as you continue to go. Also, each exercise is going to help to reinforce the other one. For the side leg lifts, I'm trying to activate this glute med muscle. So I need to make sure that I'm in the right position. My heel is going to be behind my hip. So this top leg, my heel is behind my hip, and then I'm gonna lift up and then come back down. What I'm trying to focus on is making sure that I'm not turning back too much with my pelvis. The other thing is that my heel is staying behind my hip. Very frequently, I see the compensation of people lifting, bringing their foot in front of them. That's just reinforcing using your quad and your hip flexor. We want to isolate this glute med muscle. You can even place your hand just below that pelvic ridge, so then you can really feel that muscle firing in the back. You want to make sure that you're leading with your heel, that your toes aren't pointing up toward the ceiling. Hip thrusts will help us to isolate the glute max muscle. So what happens a lot of times with the knees is that we end up overusing the quads. So we need to make sure that we use the glutes and the hamstrings. So this will help us to isolate that. My feet are pressing down into the mat. Toes are pointing forward. That's really important to make sure that that knee is tracking the way that it's supposed to. I'm pressing through my heel, through my big toe and the pinky edge side of my foot, making sure my arches aren't collapsing. Place your hands right in your hip crease where your pockets are, because this is going to help you to isolate exactly where you should be moving. Your spine is staying stable that whole time. And then I'm going to drop my hips down, and now moving just from this hip joint, I'm going to extend my hips, and then I'm going to come back down. So my spine isn't moving at all. This is just coming from my hips, and every time that I go to extend my hips, I'm contracting right where my glute and my thigh meets. That's what's going to provide that stability in my knee. So I really need to make sure that I'm firing right where that glute and hamstring meet, so that I'm isolating those muscles. This will be important for when we do the modified RDL as well as the eccentric chair squats. This modified RDL is going to help you to connect the hip and knee stability needed for any type of activity like walking, running, stair climbing, sitting down, you name it. This is super important. You need to be able to hinge at your hip in order for your knee to work properly. So let's get started. We're first going to start doing a 2-leg RDL. So my spine is staying stable just like how it was in the hip thrust. Then my knees are just slightly bent. Then I'm pushing my hips back. I'm going to shift my weight over to this right leg, and I'm going to try to lift this leg up, keeping both sides of my pelvis pointing down, and then I'm going to come up. Then I'll switch to the other side. So I'm hinging at my hips, shifting that weight over to that left side. I'm trying to keep both sides of my pelvis pointing down. So I'm not turning open. I need to keep my hip pointing down that whole time, and then I'm going to come up. A common mistake I see is that people will bend their knees too much. We don't need to work on the quad more. We need to work on the glute and the hamstring. That's what's going to help us to have proper mechanics, and it's going to offload the stress on our knee. A single leg eccentric chair squat. That is quite a mouthful, but this is so important for not only improving hip and knee stability, but it's also really helpful for teaching your brain what position your knee should be in. Let me explain. So I'm balancing on a single leg, and then I'm slowly lowering myself down, and then I'm coming back up. Then I switch to the other side. As I lower down, I'm trying to keep my knee to the outside of my big toe. So my kneecap has to stay to the outside of my big toe as I push this hip back, and then I come to stand up. Frequently, I see people's knee cave in, particularly when they go to stand up. Their knee comes in this way. I need to try to make sure that that knee stays to the outside of that big toe as I go to stand up. And we're gonna alternate just back and forth, slowly lowering down and then coming back up. As I go to stand up, I'm trying to contract that glute the whole time. We need to make sure that everything is on track, and a lot of that comes from the hip. So in order to have strong knees, we need to have strong hips. These 4 exercises are going to improve how you move. So it's going to reteach your body how to move from your hip, how to find that stability from your hip, so then you're not putting too much stress on your knee. Do this routine 3 to 5 times in a week, and you will see a difference in your stability and your strength, and you'll be a better mover. I always say that health is a collaborative effort. I would love to hear your feedback, so make sure to comment on it if you've tried it out. Give yourself about 3 to 4 weeks to do this in order to see results. Check out the rest of the Mobility Doc YouTube for a lot of great resources to improve your flexibility, stability, and strength, and learn how to be a better mover.